May the force be with you is a phrase used to wish a person well to overcome a challenge. The invitation in this podcast, May the life force be with you, is to explore what it means to truly feel alive, to appreciate the physical, emotional and spiritual connection to our energy, and finally to understand how this impacts who you are and all that you do. May this conversation inspire you to thrive. This episode of May the Life Force Be With You is brought to you by Moment Company and the Moment Pebble. The Moment Pebble is a beautiful, natural stone, light-guided breathing device and is a unique gift for someone who needs that gentle reminder to stop and take a break, to take moments throughout their busy day and to practice mindfulness. Just head over to momentcompany.co, that's momentcompany.co, and enter the code LIFEFORCE at checkout to receive an exclusive 10% podcast discount.
Our intention with this conversation is that everyone listening comes away feeling more alive and more embodied with their sacred life force energy.
Thank you. And today we have a very special guest, Josephine Roulet, who is a birth doula and a practicing Buddhist. Through her work, she supports women during pregnancy and birth to reclaim their autonomy in childbirth. And interestingly, you have two women on here who don't have children. So it's going to be interesting to see how we navigate this conversation. But it's important to say that, a doula is not just about that giving birth, but also you hold space for women who've experienced baby loss and or pregnancy loss as well. But I think you're our first doula on the show. So we're very excited to have you with us. And hello, Josephine.
Hello, Fiona and Carila. Thank you so much for having me.
I'm so happy you're here. Me and Josephine shared a room in a retreat together. We didn't know each other before, and we were just up all night being like talking about birth and women and wombs and
Why
life.
Does that not surprise me?
But what I wanted to say was that, you said something to me that really changed my relationship with my body, my feminine power, in spite of all of the years I've done on, the feminine is my home spiritually. And you really shifted my relationship with the deep feminine by saying one thing.
Tell me.
Wow. You told me that women can do natural birth in a coma.
They can.
Because the body just knows what to do. And that just blew my whole perception of creation and manifestation and action and all of it open.
Yeah.
So, yeah. I just had to start with that because it blew my mind.
Yeah, no, it's amazing. It is a physiological response. So it's, you don't need to do anything to give birth. You just need to allow. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I mean, because there's so much. Obviously, me and Fiona only know about giving birth through films and friends and things like that. Yeah. But there's so much about push and push and push. And, I feel like that, to me, the baby hears that. And the baby hears this thing of okay, to make life happen, you have to push and you have to push and you have to push. And then we end up pushing our way through life. And yet, how does it work if a woman is in a coma and can't consciously push?
But that's so interesting what you're saying, because this idea that we've got to have what you describe as guided pushes, so push, is is very common, is what we see a lot in the media or on television, or and I'm not saying that it's not happening, but that tends to happen more when a woman would have had a lot of interventions done to her during labor. So when she's off track from the physiological birth, so the natural birth, when the hormones run the show. A lot of women actually, don't need to be guided to push. They just know. It's like, it can be described as downward vomiting. It's like your body knows it needs to. And it's like a reflex. So that's why women who have been in coma have birthed their babies still, because there is no need for guidance. It's like going for, I don't know, having a poo, or it's physiological.
I'd like to ask a question on that, Josephine. I got this image when you were saying there about it, I like that sort of reverse vomit, when it needs to come out, the body is naturally extracting something. Is it that the baby is saying, hey, it's time for me to come out, and actually there's a big part when there's a complete relaxation, there's a complete flow, there's nothing resisting? Is the baby swimming its way out, or is it the mother that's pushing, or is it when both are happening in the same time as that instance? Because now I've got other images of baby just going, okay, I'm coming out now, it's time for me to make my appearance. which is more dominant?
It all happens very gradually. So if you think with every surge or contraction, the uterus contracts and helps baby to descend down the birth canal. And so really the time where you need to push, it's when the head is there, it's what we say, it's crowning, and we need to kind of really help baby to make its way out. But I'm not sure if that's answering your question. What did you ask? Sorry, I'm not sure anymore.
Well, I just wondered, how much of that life force energy and when you're born is determined when you're ready, or when the mom is like, okay, this is coming out now. What's the dynamic between the energy of the other living human, which, if you think about it, it's free. The other living human that wants to come out and says, now it's my time, I'm making my way, here I go, versus the mom. And when there's those, as Karila was saying, those big push moments and there's the traumatic burst, is that resistance from the mother? Or is it resistance from the baby, I wonder? Or maybe I'm just getting too deep already, straight in with the deep question.
I love that. Bring it on. So baby is actually so we never know when a baby is going to come, right? Which is the beauty as well of birth. But really what happens is that from a scientific point of view, when its lungs are at full capacity, it sends a signal to the body that it's ready to take its first breath. So then with that comes a hormonal change, and then labor starts. So really, if you think about it, the start of labor is baby needing to take its first breath. So the body.
Oh, that's so beautiful. That's so beautiful. We've spoken on May the Life Force Be With You before about how breath is spirit. And so I wonder if there's a energetic thing of the life force coming in, like the intention to become full of life force energy or something like that, in terms of this science of the fact.
Yeah, but then with that, there is a belief that, I actually really believe that how you're born, the pace of your birth is indicative of the pace of how you will grow as a human being. So some babies come really fast. I'm not like how we see in films, which is always too exaggerated, but under 3 hours is considered a quick birth. Yeah. So babies who come quite fast tend to then, I believe, grow up as human beings gain maturity quite rapidly, and then also the whole how your birth unfolds also is very indicative of your life. So you were saying how, the resistance, the pushing the baby out, that actually can stay with the person throughout its life. If you think life begins at birth, yeah. So, babies who would have had quite not a gentle birth, where they would have been forced out, let's say with forceps, so with what we call assisted delivery, they tend to not like to be pushed to do things in life. And it's so interesting that we do not remember our birth. 99% of us do not remember our birth. Some do, but it's very rare. We go through what's called newborn amnesia. Because it's believed that birth by nature, it's so overwhelming. But the thing is, if we did remember our birth, I think things would make more sense in our life, as to how perhaps our personality or what triggers us might have come from birth.
I agree with you, because when you do shadow work, when you do deep subconscious work, birth and what happens in the womb comes up a lot. So there is a place where these memories are stored, where this understanding of what you experienced happens. One of the things I've seen a lot in shadow work is that when people are being born, there's a part of the soul that sometimes goes, what? I was up for this and now I'm not up for this, and doesn't embody. So there's a part of the soul that then hangs out outside of the body, just being I didn't know it was going to be this hard, or is so shocked from this you kind of go from this womb state of support and love to the opposite in a way. And so I've seen it. I've seen people meet these birth traumas and then understand how these birth traumas play out in their life. How these then affect them, the soul hanging out thing. They're not embodied, they have a tendency to leave their body every time they're experiencing trauma, as opposed to be in their body. So I totally, from the world I come from, resonate with what you're saying. There's 2 questions I'd like to ask you. One of them is, given that you've got this perception that the birth trauma, the birth affects life so much, what would you say is a birth that is conducive to a good life?
Wow.
You've mentioned autonomy a lot in what you've written. Is it about the woman being in autonomy?
Yes. So interestingly, how I present my work, or to my clients anyway, is for them. Yeah. So it's to protect them from a difficult birth or traumatic birth, or just to gain a really positive, empowering experience of birth. But you're right that what we actually end up doing indirectly is also helping babies to be born more gently. And so individuals being born on earth a little bit more peacefully. And so having a gentle start.
So I want you to keep talking about that. I can imagine that some people listening to this are no way can you do that though, because we so associate birth. So I can imagine people being how? How do you make birth peaceful?
So it's really interesting. So my experience of birth is very, very peaceful. It's very gentle. And I think we just need to break away from how the media portray birth. And also there is some truth in that birth nowadays is over-medicalized, and we for sure need to consider that. But birth as its natural state is peaceful and natural. It resembles a lot sex, actually, in the sense that it's driven by oxytocin. It's you need to feel safe and undisturbed for labor to progress, same as you would for sex. So it's just to me, it's really interesting, because I know there's so many women still who think, oh my God, birth cannot be peaceful, but it's just a very beautiful thing, really.
We're so taught in the media that it's going to be painful, or like literally I was speaking to somebody this morning that's staying with me that was like, birth sounds horrific. I never want to see somebody give birth. So it's crazy to me that you are, and me and Fiona haven't given birth. It's crazy to me that you are sitting here being like, yeah, birth is peaceful and it's oxytocin. Is that just the woman feeling safe and supported?
Yes. To respond to the argument of pain, there are going to be discomfort, and I prefer to use the word discomfort, but it does not take away the utter kind of joy and, I don't know, peace and love that you might feel with it at the same time, right? So one doesn't take away the other. So, think of like, why would runner run a marathon? That's crazy, right? It's because they want to overcome, they want to challenge them, they want to achieve something sort of beyond themselves. Like, they want to kind of, what's the word I'm trying to use?
Transcend their own limitations.
Exactly. So, there are things in life that are uncomfortable, but actually most of the time, the things that are the most uncomfortable are the most meaningful and beautiful, right?
Carol and I haven't given birth, so I'm imagining a lot of my friends, I have this conversation and they'll think I'm crazy. But a couple of things from that that I want to explore, whether C-section has a difference in how then kids are born when they are removed in a different way, and obviously the passage into life is very different. And then I maybe I'll ask that question first, and then I'll come back and ask you another one off the back of that, because it's slightly unrelated. But is there a difference when someone's had a C-section that, or the connection with the child? Is that a different way to enter the world, and can you still do that peacefully?
To answer, you can do that very peacefully as well. Being mindful of environment, the environment might, is going to be very different, because then women are in theatre. But, nowadays there are huge improvements where, the medical staff is very likely to make it as close as a woman's wishes. So you can bring your own music, playlists, and, you can, ask the screen to be, so the screen between you and the other side, when the procedure is being done, you can have the screen to have it lowered so you can see baby coming out. So there's lots of ways to plan for cesarean birth when it's elective, that can make it equally like a special birth. Of course, it's not quite the same in terms of, for baby or, first of all, if you think about it, baby doesn't have a clue that it's going to come out when it's a cesarean birth. Whereas when it's a vaginal birth, you have your surges, your contractions. So sort of baby is doing that dance with you, and it's sort of, it knows something is happening. With a cesarean birth, when baby come out, they tend to be a bit, what's the word? Not unsettled, but a bit dazzled, a bit. They need a bit of tapping, of prompting to actually get that first breath in, because they just didn't expect to come out. So
in terms of what you said about the baby wanting the first breath, creating the birth thing, I just want to, like, if the baby doesn't choose to come out, what's the impact of that? Like, why is somebody else then choosing to come out? Is that what you mean about this autonomy thing?
I mean, it is very difficult for me because, you know, part of how I work is I'm respectful of all birth, all, you know, I don't want to put on a pedestal like one birth is better than another. You know, all birth can be positive. Now, that being said, yes, of course, you know, you are going to go for a cesarean before, you know, physiologically baby would have been ready to be born. And so, yeah, I mean, you know, if you're asking me for my personal opinion, then I'd say, you know, it's not, how can I say? It's not the most gentle start for baby. But that being said, you know, not everyone is on that page with me, or, you know, with that belief. And, you know, and for a lot of women, actually what's really important and really positive for them is to have, you know, a birth without any pain, where they don't feel anything. And that's how they want, and they want to have control. Maybe they've had previous birth trauma that makes them think like, I just can't do this anymore, or one more time. And so for them, you know, cesarean birth might be the best birth. But yeah, in response to what you're saying,
actually, sorry, Justin, I was just going to say that kind of leads me to ask a good time for me to ask my follow-up question to you, which was, just in case there's anybody listening that doesn't know what a doula does, perhaps you could share a little bit about how you are helping that process and being there to kind of help that peaceful entry, because not everyone will have had the experience of working with a doula.
Yeah, so as doulas, we prepare women and parents for birth. So it's a mix of it's a lot of education, like antenatal preparation, and then we're there during the birth as an additional birth partner. So the idea, if you think a bit like of a coach, where you train an athlete, and then you're also there during the race, right? Or something like that along those lines. So that's what a doula does. But there's all sorts of doulas. Some doulas are very holistic. So they would do, work and support you in perhaps more spiritual sense. Some have got other skills. Maybe they're masseurs, so they can massage you during labor. Personally, like the way I work is I'm actually quite pragmatic. I see myself as an advocate doula. So I help parents to navigate the room, or rather the system, the maternity system, to protect their birth space and their autonomy. So,
and why does it need to be protected?
Okay. Oh dear. Have you got time?
Yeah, we've got time.
Right. So as I've mentioned, birth can be very empowering, calm, you know, and it is a rite of passage. You know, it is an important life event, and I hope most women would agree with me on that. The issue since the over medicalization of birth is that women birth in a system that is trained, or medical staff is trained to intervene. And so to fix things, offer interventions when perhaps they're not actually that helpful. So one of my clients was describing this issue as such. She was talking about her birth, and she said, it feels like the doctors would start a fire and then come as a hero to extinguish it. But actually, they're the one who kind of messed up with my labor to begin with by, offering me like drips or whatever the intervention was. And so my role is to kind of balance that. So it's like I can see that the hospital policy says that whatever, I should have this done to me at this stage. I should have this attached to me. But actually, is it helping me and my labor to progress? Is it helping me to feel empowered? So I kind of, but there's way. So because the system can be so overbearing and sometimes coercive into making women accept interventions that they wouldn't have otherwise accepted, some women choose to birth outside of the system, so have what we call a free birth. So just have a birth without any medical staff present at home. That's not my approach personally. The other solution would be to hire a private midwife. But what I try and do and teach is how to work with the system. So how to work with the medical staff, how to bring them into your birthing team and actually make it, an asset rather than something that is potentially going to mess up with your birth. Does that make sense?
And this is amazing to me because, I think loads of people these days are like, the system's overbearing, not just in birth, but in life. in Western world, the system is overbearing and interfering. And I know so many people are like, how do you work within it then? Like, how do we change things within it? So I want to take that from the birthing room, which is the power of womb magic. She knows everything. Like, what do you know about how to make the system work for you? Like, what anybody that's facing an overbearing system, what would you say is the most important thing?
Are you talking about the maternity system? For me?
I am, but I'm hoping that it will translate to everybody that is feeling, like, is there one thing that anybody that's feeling like they're in a system that is overbearing and over interfering, which so many people resonate with right now, is there something that you've learned from that can translate across all systems?
Possibly. So if I tell you a few of the things I teach, it probably applies to life, actually. Yeah. And actually the work I do more and more with, the work I do with women is really to teach them how to show up for themselves during an important time of their life and how to, navigate other people's motives. But anyway, so what I teach is how to have a respectful confrontation, practice to say no, practice to make your own decisions, so doing your own research, and so not seeing the medical staff as, with a hierarchy as like they're the boss, they're on top, but actually teaching them that they're there to help you and you're in the driving seat. So to kind of put back the women into the driving seat. But lots of things. So how to make.
And how do you have the first thing you said about like how do you do that? Like, how do you have a non-confrontational no, essentially, to a system?
Well, so a non-confrontational no. As a Buddhist, I try and kind of integrate. I would never say that to my clients, but I do, to integrate some of my practice into my work. So it's always starting with gratitude. So starting with thanks. So saying something like, let's say the midwife is called Sarah. Sarah, thank you so much for being there today. We're so grateful that you're here. And then you would just state the facts without making any assumption, just stating what you can hear or see. I can see that, you're uncomfortable with my partner being in this position. Then number 3, you would just state your needs. So you'd say, however, it's very important for my wife to be birthing on all fours or standing up. Therefore, she's going to, and thank you so much for listening to her wishes. So something like that. So it's kind of it's nothing like magic. It's just learning strong but also compassionate. So like, acknowledging discomfort. I can see this is uncomfortable for you, but that's really important for us. Thank you very much for bearing with us, or thank you very much for does that make sense?
Yeah, it sounds like it's about actually having a relationship with the person that represents the system. Actually having relationship.
Absolutely. The other thing I try and teach is to start to see the medical staff as human beings, which I know sounds a bit funny, because of course they are, but like to see the person behind the staff. So, behind the midwife, behind the doctor. So they're human, and they may not be on their best day. This doctor that is being quite irritated with you might be going through a divorce, might have, financial struggles at home, might not had a chance to have a break for 12 hours. So it's also trying to understand that they're there to help you, even if it seems like they're being unhelpful or difficult. They're there for you. And that for me is the work. It's not to try and teach people like, give up on the system, free birth. If the system was a person, you'd want to, give it a chance to improve, make peace with it. That's what I'm trying to do.
And that's quite a skill, I would imagine, to be able to do when you're in that heightened moment of stress. So to remember that gratitude, to ask with thanks, to state facts. So I can understand. So do you practice?
Yeah, you do. But you see how I've mentioned like the birth partner. So maybe the husband talking on behalf of his wife. The other thing that's very important in a birth is to be a team. So the woman, as she sings during labor, she disconnects from her neofrontal cortex. So she goes into the primitive part of the brain. So she's not really able to use language or decision making.
She sings.
I like to say she sings because it's like she goes deeper into herself. You see what I mean?
She sings. Okay.
Yeah. So she's not really in the best position to advocate for herself during birth. That's why you hire a doula, or you kind of teach the partner to do that for you, because she's just not going to be able to. If we bring her back to her neofrontal cortex, so back into her having to make decisions or use language too much, it's going to make labor stall. So we don't want that to happen. So it's kind of how do we work as a team. So, typically that would be the husband, but if the husband doesn't feel like he can advocate for his wife, then that would be passed on to the doula. That's also a role. We make a birth plan. So I know, with each client, I know exactly what their preferences are, in what scenario. So we've kind of rehearsed everything. So the idea is that, whatever's happening, we're ready.
But birth goes wrong, hey? Like, I have another doula friend that's like, make a plan and know that plan is never going to go to plan.
Yeah.
And so how does the husband or you know how to advocate for what the plan is?
Okay.
And then know what's right when it feels like the plan's go. I think that's why people then lean into the system, when the plan goes wrong is when you tend to like turn to the system and be like, okay, you know better than me because it's not going to plan.
Yes.
How does that happen?
So birth is probably the most unpredictable life event. Okay. So how do we make a plan with that? No, but it's such a good question. And that's what I've mentioned, plans or scenarios, plural. It's not really, so you do, like everything, you do have to come with like your ideal birth. And then you also need to consider, okay, if this was to happen, what would my preference then be? So, for example, if a baby needed assistance coming out because there are reasons like positioning and things like that, would I prefer an assisted delivery or an emergency cesarean? Or if whatever. There's so many different scenarios. That's what we do when we prepare. So it's not really, it's good to have a birth plan because it's good to know what you intend to do. But it's also good to explore all different avenues. So I make actually several birth plans, particularly if you're planning a home birth. So if you're planning a home birth, you might, for some reason, choose to transfer to hospital at some point. So you also need to have a hospital plan, even though you intended a home birth. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. And I want to, because obviously I don't know if you know how many births you've seen. I'd love to know if you do know.
I was going to ask too.
I just want to bring it to life force, because so the woman's sunk. There's all these plans, but what have you seen on the? Because to me, birth is like the front line of life force energy. Hey, like what do you know about life force by seeing all of the births that you've seen, however many it is?
Wow. How do I know about life force watching births?
Yeah. What can you tell us about life force energy from birth?
So that's interesting. So there is a belief, I've just talked about how a woman sinks, or for lack of a better word, or goes into her inner self, her cave, as labor progresses. There is a belief that says that a woman would go to the stars to reach for the soul of her baby, and then she comes back. But what do I know? I know that, you will probably experience, actually, okay, I don't want to get too deep, but life and birth and death for me are very close. And I think that birth will take you to a place that might bring you closer to the experience of death. And sorry, it's going a bit deep, but lots of women describe having an out of body experience at some point during what we call the transition stage, just before pushing baby out, where they feel like they're over their body and they can see themselves birthing their babies.
I just wonder if what's happening then is they've left their body because the soul or the life force energy of the baby has come into their body in that final moment. And so there isn't actually room for both spirits. And so that's why they're out of their body as the life force of the baby comes in.
Yeah.
Because I do think there's some life force of the baby that forms in the womb. But I from what I've seen in shadow work is the birthing process from a shadow work point of view is the mother's doing a whole load of purging of karma and all sorts of things. And there's a massive injection of soul and spirit energy that happens as the birth is where the spirit's really coming in.
Beautiful.
From the shadow work point of view, for sure.
Beautiful. And I'm glad you asked this question, because for me, the idea that mothers go to reach for babies' souls during birth might not entirely resonate with me, only because I also believe that soul, starts in the womb. So, and having done obviously work with women who've experienced baby loss or pregnancy loss, you can ask, like, how come these souls or these babies, barely made it into the world before they went, or actually some of them didn't make it on this side, on the earth side, but they were there, they existed. So, that can lead you to think like, but what is life force? How come, are we, not, how come we don't equally have, it's not fixed when you think about life force? How come someone might have more life force than me? Or, how come we've evolved over time, or life expectancy has increased? Does that mean we have more life force? If that's how you describe life force, like, okay, so for me, life force, I've had to come to this conclusion, but is our unconscious willingness to be or stay incarnated.
To stay here. I love it. I feel you, because it's like, eating, which is how we receive life force energy, is basically us saying yes to a few more hours.
Wow.
Like every time we eat, we're buying a few more hours, because if you stop eating, you run out of hours pretty quick. Certainly if you stop drinking water, you really run out of hours quick, and I mean, it's a bit of an out there view, but my guides say that no baby that doesn't make it was ever going to make it. So like their view is that if there's a baby that is aborted, if there is a baby that is stillborn that doesn't make it, they're like, that is a soul family or a spirit guide, somebody coming in to clear out the womb, to clear out the lineage, to do work for the collective, but they were never going to make it. Because my guide's view is that birth is perfect. So that like it's divine. And so if the baby was going to die, that the baby was always going to, like, it was a soul contract. That's their view on it. It's pretty radical, really, but
no, it also resonates. Sure. But do you see what I mean about life force being like?
So exactly, it completely resonates with what you say, because it's like if a soul is coming in to say clear out the lineage to prepare the woman for the next birth that is going to be a baby that is born, that soul has chosen to come in without enough life force energy to live on earth, just enough life force energy to do the few months in the womb that they're going to do and do the clearing work, and then they're going to go so the next soul can come in, as an example, which happens a lot. Like, I didn't realize how common.
Yeah.
It's not talked about how common miscarriages are, and women go through so much because of it. I just wonder, only because it's so personal to me. My mum had such bad postnatal psychosis that created so much of my own trauma gift journey. I have this joke that the mother wound is the wound that keeps on giving, like mother's love. And so because it's so personal to me, I just want to ask if there's anything about, like, I kind of feel like the postnatal depression, the postnatal psychosis, the drop is because there is so much life force energy in birth. And then it's like the loss of that, like, high, and it's like the drop from that.
Yeah.
And that is also something that's not talked about, that so deeply affects so many children and women and families and relationships. And I just wonder if there's anything that you can say on that as well, You
mean particularly on postpartum psychosis?
Or just if there's anything that can happen in birth that stops the common thing of postpartum depression and psychosis.
Well, so postpartum depression and psychosis are obviously two different things and two different types of distress, I suppose. I'd say a lot of the postpartum depressions are caused actually by a difficult birth, and so a difficult bonding with baby at the back of that.
So can I just ask, is that because the birth was difficult and the mother is then traumatized by the baby, essentially, and or by the experience, and doesn't then know how to bond?
No, it's because the experience was so difficult that it affects her bonding with her baby. So it's quite rare, but some mothers, can't even hold their baby after birth because it just feels too much. They just need a breather. But that being said, not all postpartum depressions are caused by birth trauma. But just to put things into context, it's estimated that by the NHS that around 30% of births can be classified as traumatic births currently. So,
that's a very high number.
That's a very high number.
That is a lot of trauma.
For mother and baby.
Exactly.
You see, how does that propel them as new parents?
Exactly. It's not just the child coming into the world, but it's also the trauma that the mother is left with as well. And let's not leave out the dads in that too, because I would imagine that there's parental trauma that's connected to, how you birth. And, I know quite a few people that have had very premature babies, and I think that there's a different parenting style and a different connection and perhaps a protection instinct that kicks in perhaps when you have had some form of childbirth trauma that connects with the parenting. So as you say, Karila, goes all the way through into life, and that's why we're always unpicking something from our childhoods, but it might be something that has come from that moment in the delivery room. But 30%, that's very high.
And what's the percentage of women that have doulas? Do you know that?
I actually don't. I was going to say perhaps not enough, but I might be biased.
I just wonder if there's a correlation. I feel like
there is. So there's a huge correlation between parents who are supported by doulas. There's a huge decrease of medical interventions, birth traumas. That's actually been researched and shown. So,
it's really beautiful because it's just like all you actually need even in the height of what is considered the hardest thing of the world, life, death. All you actually need is support, hey? You just need to be supported, and then it won't be traumatic. It's like the trauma comes from not being supported, is what I'm hearing from this conversation.
Yeah.
Or ask the experts and go to those that know and that can guide you through it. And there's an expertise, there's an understanding, and you don't have to go alone. That's the message that I hear. Turn to someone that can support you, because that is their work. And I just wanted to ask, because I'm conscious of our time as always, that it disappears so quickly. But did you answer the question of how many births you've actually witnessed? Do you have an idea?
It would be about 20 now.
Wow.
Because I started this work in 2021. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. 20 births.
Mm-hmm.
Most people don't see, unless you give birth or are a partner, most people don't even see one birth. To see 20 is amazing.
Yeah, it very much is. Well, I know that it's going to have got people really thinking about that peaceful entry into the world and how important that is. And if anybody is, I've actually got a few friends who are about to give birth this week, so I shall tell them something to be peaceful when they're giving birth. I'm not sure if they might swear at me, but I'm certainly going to give that advice about what they're doing. But I know that it will have given certainly me and Karila, it has, but a lot of people a different perspective on how beautiful that experience can be. And we will definitely share all your details around where people can learn more about the work that you do. And also, you know, people listen all over the world, so perhaps there can be curiosity on how to connect with other doulas in their area as well.
Also the work you do with women that have lost babies, you know, as well, because what's amazing is you're not just supporting women that are having babies, you're also supporting women that have lost babies, which I feel is so important, because so many women are going through that, and it's so not there isn't enough support out there. I feel
it's actually interesting you say that, Karila, because I think it's a form of loss that isn't properly given the space to grieve, and perhaps it's not considered a significant grief process because perhaps that soul didn't fully live. But that sense of future loss of family, familiar, just it's a deep loss that, you're right, needs to be more widely recognized and appreciated, and space held for women that are going through that.
I feel like what I'm taking from this, because, you know, we're always birthing in our lives. Like, we're always birthing new projects. We're always you know, like you say, what happens in our birth kind of happens through our life. And what I'm taking from this is that to have a huge life force shift, to have a birth, you have to be supported and held. You know, you have to be doulaed. Like, I'm like, right, all these projects I'm trying to birth, who's my doula? Who's going to help me be in my autonomy about what I actually want, and not get sucked into what the system wants or what the collective wants, but like, how am I going to hold my autonomy because somebody is holding me? And that is what I am taking from this amazing conversation. So I'm so grateful we had it, Josephine. And I think you're an amazing doula, because every time you've spoken, you've just made me feel so good. You made the life force be with you calm, which is a hard thing to do.
Yes.
Thank you so much for having me. I love having chats about birth in the wider sense, and that's not something I would typically do with my clients. It's really enjoyable to be able to do that in that space. Thank you.
I'd love to ask you, who should we speak to next?
Ooh, I think you should speak to a deaf doula.
Yes. Do you know one? Can you recommend one?
I know a very great. I know someone. I think. Yeah.
Will you put us in touch?
I will.
Thank you. And yeah, we'd love to go deeper with you. We will. We have the Life Force Cafe, which is where our speakers get to journey and do Q&As and go deeper. And so we'd love you at some point to come into the Life Force Cafe.
I would love that. Thank you.
Go even deeper with how women can connect to, women and men can connect to birth and life force.
I would love that. Thank you. Thank you so much for the invitation today.
Thank you again, Josephine, and may the life force be with you, everybody, and the little souls that are joining us soon as well.
The wisdom of the divine feminine, man.
And the wisdom of the child. Baby's first breath. It just kind of makes sense, doesn't it? I don't think we stop and appreciate the magic of that moment, do we? And we don't talk about the magic of our own moments.
Yeah, I loved that she said about it's the first breath that starts. There's so much I loved that she said, actually. I loved what she said about the mother going up and getting the soul, even though she didn't particularly resonate with that. I loved that. Yeah, I loved that she said that birth can be peaceful.
Yeah. And but I knew you were positively jumping onto the moon and the stars when she said that. And also the bit where I thought that she said that the mother sings instead of sinks, and I thought you were going to lose your shit, if I'm honest.
But they do sing in a way. The wailing that women do when they're pregnant is a form of song.
And maybe, you know, for any doulas out there, maybe let us know if singing is a more peaceful way. You never know. Like maybe there's something unconscious that resonated in there.
I also loved everything. You know, one of the most profound things that came out of that conversation was what she was saying about like how to navigate a system that is, because I feel like that whether you have any intention of having children or not is worth listening to that episode just for that understanding of how to hold your autonomy in a system that is trying to interfere.
Yeah, I loved how you made it applicable to that wider sense of society, of systems, of also, I think, empowerment. So how to find a voice within that system. And, you know, you're not coming in hot, you're not coming in with anger, you're coming in with gratitude, you're stating facts, you're making your needs heard. And then you're saying, and this is what I need, and you move on. And there's something that we can all take from that in just a little bit of day-to-day life. So, you know, sometimes it's the simplest of things that kind of resonate and make sense in other environments.
And I think that, you know, like birth begins everything, hey? So to me, I love the fact that I feel like some of the medicines for these times that are about learning in some way how to make the system work for you and how to make the system support the new way and the new, like, I love that the wisdom is coming out of birth. Like, I love because birth begins everything, and it's like we're so busy living our lives that we forget, like what she was saying as well about how like your birth affects who you are and how you do things, and just amazing.
So on that note, Josephine's recommendation of who to talk to next was a death doula. So I'm fascinated to join the dots of those conversations and understand if our way we enter life is in any way informative or transformative in how we end life as well. So maybe that's one for that episode to explore with a death doula.
That is a spine-tingling question. We definitely need to ask.
We will pose that on a future episode. Thank you for today, Karila. Thank you, Josephine. And we will follow up with you all soon.
May the life force be with you. We hope this conversation has topped up your life force energy. If it has, then please help us spread the life force. Like, share, subscribe, all of that. And may the life force be with all of us.